Good morning, brothers and sisters. We praise God for another day. We thank Him because of the beautiful Sabbath that we had. A spirit-filled Sabbath full of blessings, fellowship, and learning. We praise His name. We also praise Him for the baptism that took place yesterday, for the new souls that have decided to follow Jesus Christ. May the Lord continue to bless them as they grow in their Christian experience and continue to bring even others into the kingdom. We want to thank God for all of you who are here this morning and those of us who are continuing with this program. May the Lord continue to bless us as we go forward in the program. Yesterday I brought you greetings, and I continue to do the same because my leader is constantly in touch and praying for us and making sure that we know that they are wishing us the best and praying for us. 2 days ago, as you read the news, you've heard of that terrible accident that took place in a bus that was coming from Botswana. Terrible thing to happen. Then just before I left Washington, I think on Monday night, a ship loaded with maybe 1,000 containers, quite heavy, extremely heavy. The amount they talk about is difficult to comprehend. Lost control and knocked down Q Bridge in Baltimore, 1.6 miles, all drowned into the sea. And they say that it is so deep there that in some parts it's like 10 stories down deep into the water. Why am I saying this? While we don't apportion blame on anyone, and while we feel sympathetic indeed for the families that have lost loved ones, it also serves to remind us that we are still in this world. And that as long as we are in this world with the devil on rampage, these things will continue to happen. And unfortunately, they will not only happen in Baltimore or on the road from Botswana, but they can also happen to some extent even in our institutions. And so as we strive for excellence, as we strive for heaven, as we carry out mission, we also have to be careful on how we deal with safety in our institutions. So this morning, we want to talk about safety in educational institutions, what all should know. And this is, I know some of these may not apply in your places. Some of them are just reminders. Some of them may be things that you are acquainted with. But it is important to remind ourselves because we, as we move around, we have seen things happen in our own institutions which can be a liability and can cause us to lose track from striving for excellency and instead keep on going backward. So the title that I was given was Risk Management and Risk and Health and Safety in our institutions, and so I decided to call it just Safety in Educational Institutions, just sharing with you some snippets. And by the way, yesterday after the very beautiful presentations that were given here, some people were saying, well, we need more of that. Indeed, we need more. Because what was given, what we are giving here are just snippets, just titles. These things take time to exhaust. Like when you talk of faith, integration of faith and learning, that is a course that is taught for a whole semester in college. And when we do seminars, we take 2 weeks covering what we need to cover just on that one topic. So what we are doing here is we are not being exhaustive. We're just giving snippets so that we can get to know a little bit about them and then research more and get to know more as we go back and organize more seminars so that we can get to know a little more. So safety, when we think of safety, we are reminded that we are parents ourselves, we have children, but also on top of those children that we have our own children, we also as teachers are entrusted with other children, other people's children, and therefore we are acting in loco parentis. We are acting in the place of parents, and that is very important as a framework where we come from. Think of these children as your own children. One important aspect of this responsibility as in loco parentis is safety of the students that we are given, those children that are given to us. How are we keeping them safe as they are in our gates? Neglecting this very important can result in very costly results. Can result in very costly results. And some of you, and many of you know stories and maybe have had some experience. It can result in very costly results. And even more so, it can also result in emotional results that can last a long time. You can imagine if something happens because of negligence on your own part, how are you going to live after that? It's going to be very difficult. And that's why we stress these points, because we need to be careful as we deal with these young people that have been entrusted to us. And also we are accountable to God. It's not only parents who have entrusted them to us, but God himself has entrusted them to us. So let us think of these children, young or old, whatever age they are, that they are precious gifts that have been given to their own parents by God himself, but they all belong to God. What are the major threats to safety in the institutions? And again, these are just snippets. You can add, you can subtract, you can include many others, but most of them fall under these categories: carelessness and negligence. It could be structural deficiencies, fire. We are going to see all of these in a bit more details. Sabotage. We have things like accidents, natural calamities. We have the man-made calamities, as we will see, diseases and sicknesses, and cyber and digital attacks. These things are happening. They happen, and they can happen anywhere in our institutions or in places where we live. So we want to look at some of these one by one and see how we deal with them. Number one, carelessness and negligence. Now, if it is carelessness just means that we have not done what we are supposed to do. That's the simple way of putting it. Careless, we have been careless, we have not been careful, we have not done what we are supposed to do. And this includes things like leaving students exposed to hazardous materials and construction tools. Oftentimes you're constructing, we're putting up new buildings and so on and so forth. Do we take care to instruct the children and keep those tools in a safe place? We are talking about failure to provide warning signs. We are talking about exposing students to live electric wires. As I said, some of these may not apply in some of your places, and just get it as information that you can share with others. But some of us might have it close to us. We have been to places where wires are hanging, and children can easily be forced to push their hands in there, and you can imagine what kind of situation that could result. So exposing them to live wires, allowing students to play in potentially dangerous environments, leaving open pits and holes around the campus without barriers or deterrent signs. Because sometimes you may want to, maybe you're building, you want to make a foundation or something like that, but have we made sure that we have put deterrent signs, or have we told the children that they should not use those areas? Those things can be causes of risks and disturb our safety. Too much grass, which can harbor snakes, harmful insects, and other hidden dangers. And we know that when we have too much of these, it could be dangerous on our campuses. Stray animals, like dogs, which may have rabies, like goats going around. Some people say the goats help to eat the grass, so they keep the grass low. But they are not meant to be mowers. So things of that nature. Improper use of technology and safeguards. That is this is beginning from negligence, which means that we know what we are supposed to do. We were supposed to be able to do something, but we were careless. We did not take care in doing what we are supposed to do. That could be very dangerous and very a big risk to safety. Number two, and of course, if it is negligence, there is no excuse for whatever has been done, because you knew what you were supposed to do, but you didn't do it. So there is very little excuse that you can give. Number two is structural deficiencies. When we are building, we are always constructing, we are always adding, we want to expand, we want to improve, we want to make better. But do we take care when we are doing these? Are we taking care? It's structural deficiencies. Things like buildings and other infrastructure must be suitable and safe for students by ensuring that buildings are reasonably completed before they can be occupied and used according to age groups. In other words, we should be able to get an occupation certificate. I know in many parts we occupy buildings before they are quite ready, and that we need to be careful about that. But when it comes to if they are not safe, we definitely need to not to go into that direction and wait until they are reasonably completed and we have gotten the occupation certificate to occupy them. Doors to buildings. This is a simple thing, but which we normally want to stress. Doors to buildings that harbor or that host many students should open to the outside, or should open two ways. Like that doors, you can see it. When you're going out, you can push it out and open. And the reason is very simple, and most of you know that if anything happens in that building, there is a fire, there is some kind of explosion, or there is anything that comes that brings disorder, and especially if it is fire, all the children will be running towards the door because they want to get out. The first ones who get there will be trying to open the door. But if it is opening inside towards them, the others, because of panic, the others are pushing. And what will happen? The door will remain closed, and you will find them dead right there at that very place, or having been injured more than they would have been injured because of that kind of situation. And yet, if it opened outside, the first one will push it out, and the others will follow and they go out. Simple thing, but we often ignore it, and it can be a very big danger to our institutions. So this is mostly for those buildings that host many students, like dormitories, like laboratories, auditoriums, cafeteria, chapel, library. The doors should be opening to the outside. Sufficient ventilation is provided. It's important to provide sufficient ventilation, sufficient reinforcement, particularly in multi-level buildings. Sometimes, well, maybe I better not say that, but we need to provide sufficient reinforcements in buildings that are high-rise buildings especially. Fire exits are provided and well labeled, that we know where to go and how to go and what to do in case of fire. Provision of ramps and/or elevators for the physically challenged. When we talk about, there are places where we have talked about this, and they say, well, we will not admit those who are not physically, or those who are physically challenged. Now, first of all, that it will be discrimination, and we never know whose child that is going to be. But also think about it in another way, by yourself. Just on Friday, I had a little accident. Thank God it was not bad, but it could have been worse, and maybe I could have injured myself or harmed myself right here in Durban. It can happen to anyone. But if it happens and you are the biology teacher or you are the mathematics teacher, your brain is still okay, everything else is working, but your leg cannot walk well, or is in plaster or something like that. Are you going to be out of work completely? Because after you have been treated for some time, you may be told now you can go and continue with the normal life as you heal. But you cannot go up the steps because you're still in cast. So it could happen, it could be one of the teachers, it could be one of us who is not able to go through that building, which is built without ramps, without provisions for the physically challenged. So it's important to take into account all these things as we do construction. We talk about fire. Fire is a big problem in some countries. I don't know much about here, but in some of the countries that I know, fire is a big problem. It could be caused by electric shorts or electric wiring, which is not done well. So it is important to check the wiring of our buildings and also to regularly check them. In fact, they say after every 10 years, I should not say they say, but in some countries the law is that every 10 years you're supposed to re-inspect the wiring and how it is moving on. Because these things, although they were done properly, they get old. They get old and they get, rusty and so on and so forth, and they begin creating challenges. Kitchen fires. Unauthorized persons should not be permitted. And if students are to work in the kitchen, they should be well supervised, very well supervised. There should be someone to oversee what is happening. Usage of candles. I don't think this applies here, but if it does, or if you know where it applies, serious usage regulation should be developed. Otherwise, it should be completely prohibited, especially these days when we have solar lamps which can be obtained at reasonably cheap or affordable prices. That's just a suggestion, but there could be other ways of handling this situation. But we have had in some places where candles have caused problems in dormitories and other buildings. Friction. Sometimes you hear some noise, and that noise keeps on increasing and moving on, and every time the wind comes, you hear that noise going on. And instead of checking it, you somehow ignore it. It's important to check it, because there might be two pieces of wood which are, rubbing against each other. And the longer they do that, the more likely that they can cause fire. That fire can result. It could even be metal. Fuel. We talk about fuel. In some of our places, we keep petrol, paraffin, gas. Other places, they use charcoal, even wood. This must be kept safe in safe store without contact with fire, if they are to be kept at all. They should be safe keeping. Deliberate burning. And sometimes, unfortunately, there have been a few people, some individuals who have gone and lighted buildings for whatever reasons. Basically, what we need to do is to teach respect for life and property. Value each other's lives and property. Continuing with fire, provide firefighting equipment in vulnerable places. Additional or temporary measures include placing buckets of sand in strategic places, like we have seen on petrol stations. But firefighting equipment, the right ones, should be placed in the right places on our campuses. Teach students and school community what to do in case of fire. What are they supposed to do? Sometimes, we don't know what to do, and what we do may instead fuel the fire even much more. Conduct fire and accident drills frequently to demonstrate what to be done. The fire department, I think, in most countries is very eager and willing and able to provide the training on a regular basis. Sometimes we ignore, sometimes we forget, but these are important things that we need to remember for the sake of safety and accountability of the young people that we have in our institutions. Talk about sabotage. This is unfortunate instances of deliberate destructive actions, often difficult to deal with. Sabotage, things like willful destruction or deliberate or willful destruction of property. Maybe inside the school, maybe coming from outside of the school. Basically, within the school, we should teach respect of property and values. Teach values. even if they are disgruntled, it is not the property that has disgruntled them, and it doesn't pay to destroy property because that's the property that they are going to use again. So it's important to continually teach respect for property and proper values that they should not destroy. Teach the students to watch out for suspicious elements. Oftentimes they say, we saw boys doing these kind of things. We saw some people moving around, and we just ignored it. They should be careful about and watch out for suspicious elements and report them, not handle them themselves, but report them to relevant authority without exposing themselves to danger. Report to relevant authority. And it depends on the degree. And we could talk much about this, but you know what we are talking about. They should be reported to the relevant authority, of course, the authority of the school, the institution, as well as the government authorities in the area. Teach what to do in case it happens. Just in case it has happened, which also unfortunately can take place. Teach what to do and how to handle it, as we are going to see in some of the next slides. Endeavor to develop good relations with the community. I think it was mentioned yesterday here. Yes, I think it's Dr. Mlambo who mentioned it, about Baraton University. When people were rioting, and the rioting was terrible and tense. I know that time very well because we were coordinating from the division. The people who loved the institutions came and said, we will protect the university. Not inside here. Nothing is going to happen here. Why? Because of good relations that had been developed. But if we don't have good relations, they will be cheering when things are happening in the institution. That can be a very dangerous situation. So let us endeavor to develop good relations with our communities. Know who is who and what is happening, and be involved and be available and so on and so forth. That will help save the situation in case things of this nature are likely to happen. Accidents, yes, like sabotage, accidents may not be easy to foresee. That's why they're accidents. They may not be easy to foresee. However, accidents can be minimized by taking care of the following. Minimized or dealt with by taking care of the following. And these are just a few that you can think about. You can add as many as possible, but as long as you have a protocol. Ensuring that the vehicles are roadworthy. The vehicles that we use, are they roadworthy? Either our own or those that we hire from outside. Education outings are well planned, and all precautions against avoidable problems are taken. Having clear regulations for use, such as in the case of laboratory, cafeteria. We know some of these places are more vulnerable, like laboratories, where the students carry out experiments and practicals. Anything can happen in there. I've experienced this a few times. But when you know what to do, it helps. I remember one time we were studying and we were having a chemistry experiment being done. And one of our colleagues was a very kind of flamboyant guy. He was talkative, he was very smart, but sometimes, of course, he could forget things. So he put up his experiment, Kip's apparatus, I think it was, and he didn't open the certain valve and began heating. Then as soon as he began heating, now he began going around and talking and just having some kind of fun or helping others and so on and so forth. But the thing had been closed and heating. And of course, you know what happens when you heat something which is in a closed area. The vapor grew up, the pressure built, and bam, it burst. By the time it burst, he was very close to it and he knew what to do. Immediately, he went under the tap and washed off the acid, which had splashed on him. His injuries were very minimal. But the girl next to him, she was crying and scratching and trying to rub and so on and so forth, and was badly burnt by the acid. Two people in the same area, one knows what to do, another did not know. One who is burnt, another one is not burnt that bad. Why? Knowing what to do is very important. So those of you who teach sciences, make sure there are regulations, they are well known, there are guidelines, there are instructions, there are examples given on what to do when you are teaching. Because we are striving for excellency in chemistry, But we can't get that excellency when accidents are happening like that. Having current first aid boxes and teaching responsible usage by authorized persons. That's important because things will happen. Maybe minor cuts, maybe major, but having first aid boxes or first aid equipment is important and used responsibly by those who are authorized to use it. Sound the alarm. Sound the alarm where necessary, where possible. Or by alarm means how to alert people. We are told that this ship in Baltimore, as soon as the pilot saw, the captain saw that it was out of control, he sounded the alarm. And immediately the roads were closed. And because of that, very few people, unfortunately there were some who died. Just so far there are 6, they're talking of 6, were the ones who died. But it's a very busy road. Although it was at night, there would still be some vehicles. In fact, they were showing on the news that there were vehicles moving like that just minutes before that, those which had been allowed to go before they closed the roads. That way they were able to save. So sound the alarm, inform the others so that they know what to do. Don't keep quiet, and of course also responsibly, because sometimes it could be false alarms and things of that nature. So it's important to alert people on what to do. That will save, that will enhance safety in our institutions. Natural calamities. We talked about natural calamities. These include earthquakes, floods, volcanoes, landslides, wildfires, cyclones, and so on. Some of these are predictable by scientific means. Others may not be very easily predictable. Some places are more at risk than others. We know that. Some places we know that some others are more prone to earthquakes. Like Loma Linda area, there are almost tremors almost every week. They know that. And so when they're putting up buildings, they take that into account because it is vulnerable. And also when they're doing their training, they make sure that they do it because they're more vulnerable. So know what is likely in your area. When you are new in the area, you need to know what is likely. Is it cyclone? Is it floods? Some places are more prone to floods, like cities like Beira in Mozambique. When floods come, they're more likely to get floods there. So you know what to do in those particular areas. Teach what to do in the different situations. In case of floods, in case of landslides. And if you don't know, there are resources available in the countries where we live, in the cities where we work, which can be used to help us, to teach us what to do. What is important is to make sure there is something that is done. Be ready to evacuate when required and or advised. It may come to a point where prolonged stay will make it more dangerous. And so it may be important to teach to evacuate, and therefore should be ready. And we are going to see a little bit about that. If more at risk, have a well-planned, a well-developed and known evacuation plan. If you are more prone to certain areas like that, make sure that you have a well-developed evacuation plan, which is also well known. It's one thing to have one, but it's another to be known. What do we do, what to take, how to move, where to meet, what groups gives information, who leads groups, and so on and so forth. All those are important things which we don't have enough time to go into here, but which I believe you have resources in the various places which you can use. We only need to tap them and they will help us. Next is human-made calamities. There were natural calamities, but there are also those which are human-made, like robbery. That is a human-made calamity. That's like riots, like clashes, child abuse, terrorist activities, and wars, and things, and more and more. Watch out for signs and report to relevant authorities. Watch out if there is likely to be riots, if there are suspicions of child abuse, if there are, and when it comes to child abuse, that is very important, very, very crucial. That is taken very seriously, both by the church and the governments where we work. We need to be very careful. Robbery, sometimes people get to know or to see suspicious, but they don't report. Report to the relevant authorities. That's very important. Cooperate with the law enforcement authorities. When they now have gotten the information and are doing certain things, then don't resist what they tell you to do. Make sure you cooperate with them. Work, do as they advise. Teach teachers and students to avoid taking sides, especially in things that have to do with politics, at least openly. We are not saying one should not have their own exercise and opportunities to vote. That's not the issue. But taking sides in very tense or in tense situations can create tension even within the institution. And when challenges come, it may become very difficult to deal with them. So teach to avoid taking sides, at least openly. That if they have sides, everyone will have maybe some support, some side they support. Let them do it internally, but not openly, because that could be dangerous to them, dangerous to others, dangerous to our children, and we will not achieve the excellency that we are striving for, and we will not be able to carry out adequate mission. If signs indicate some potential calamities, have a well-developed evacuation plan. I've talked about that already. Evacuation, where, who does where do we go, where do we gather, who leads which group, and how do we take roll call. Now we talked about diseases and sicknesses. These can also be risks to safety. We know 4 years ago, it's amazing that it's already 4 years, but 4 years ago we were invaded by this worldwide calamity, the pandemic, and things that we didn't know before. That again shows us that anything can happen and we are still in this world. This becomes a concern when there are outbreaks of infectious diseases or some unique situations, and especially infectious, dangerous diseases. Advise to stay at home or on noticing signs. In order, since they're infectious and dangerous, they better keep away so that it does not spread. Isolate cases as soon as the first signs are seen. But teach children to report to leadership, not to suffer or to keep in the dormitory or to hide. Let them report to the relevant authority in the school. Get in touch with their parents and medical services. Depending on the situation, there are many different situations that could occur. But report, get in touch with their parents. It's very important, especially parents, because parents are concerned and they love their children. They want to know what is happening to them. And we are acting in loco parentis. So it is important for them to know what is happening. Do not judge or jump to conclusions, and teach the children not to do the same and not to make fun of the victim. Make fun of the victim. Some children may want to begin making fun. I remember one student who was studying with, there was an outbreak of mumps. Mumps that caused some swelling here. And one boy was so fascinated by seeing the other is swollen here, so he could go and just touch and have fun. And then touch another one, and he was just having fun, and within no time he was down with it. Teach children not to make fun. It's not fun, that is not what God intended for us, and it does not lead to excellency. Avoid unprofessional prescriptions and dispensing of medication, especially in dormitories. Many children want to take medications without proper prescriptions. In some places where it is possible, because in some places where the laws are working, it may not be easy. But there are places where it could be possible. Be careful and teach that the children should not do unprofessional prescriptions or dispensing medication on themselves without seeing the relevant persons concerned or the doctor. And maintain confidentiality. The diseases, nobody wants everybody to go on announcing that so-and-so is having this and that. So avoid publicity, maintain confidentiality. Cyber and digital attacks. This I just talk about briefly because there are colleagues here who know much more and who can be contacted to assist because they know much more about this. I'm just mentioning them here. Things like impersonation, soliciting, especially these days, a lot of soliciting. For this, for that, for this, for that. Media misinformation and conspiracy theories, plenty of these, and people follow these and go on doing, and again, fund them so that they grow bigger. Gaming, internet, mobile addiction, that could be a challenge, addiction on these things. Complex attacks like phishing, malware, scams, etc. What is basically important is to teach responsible usage and use the expertise of the IT department, which I think in most of all our institutions now we have, because that's what we are using. Let them assist in giving information and assist them to get more information, because this area changes very, very fast, almost by the hour, or at least by the day. And what you think was true yesterday, by today, maybe not that true. So give them as much opportunity as possible to get advanced information, current information, so that they can help the institution and the children to be safe. Regularly review what is happening. So these are some of the calamities that we can face in schools that can cause risk in what we do. What are the general guidelines that we have? Okay. Some general guidelines. Number one is pray, 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 and pray. That one we cannot overlook, because it is only God who sustains us. If you think of what is happening around us, what you go through, when you see what happens on the roads, in the cars, in the homes, in the schools, in the banks, wherever we are we walking, the devil is on rampage. He's on rampage, doing things that are incredible. So we cannot cease from prayer. We know that prayer is powerful, prayer has sustained us, and will continue to sustain us. In addition to prayer, which must be very important, have evacuation plans. We have referred to this as much as possible, but a little more detail here. In all cases, it is important to share information, but in a responsible way. All should know where to receive official information from, and not to depend on rumors and conspiracy theories. So all your children, all your students and teachers should know where to go to get right information, and not to depend on everything that comes and all conspiracy theories. And there are many, I'm sure you know this. People are creating theories left and right almost by the minute. Evacuation plan becomes necessary when continued stay at the place becomes more dangerous. We have talked about that. Ensure the plan is well known and coordinated, because depending on the number of people you have in your community, in your school, you may need to have different groups and different routes or different ways of evacuating. Ensure that it is well coordinated. Ensure that no one is left behind. The idea is everybody is important. Everyone is valuable. So make sure that no one is left behind by negligence or anything of that nature. Be vigilant and alert the IT department, especially if it has to do with cyber and IT issues. Be vigilant, watch out what is happening. Don't just open things and so on, but inform the IT department. Inform parents as soon as possible and let them know where to find their children if necessary. For example, if you have evacuated and the news go out and say the school has been evacuated, the parents will be concerned, now where? Where is my son? Where is my daughter? So it is important that as soon as possible, let them know where they are, and if it is safe to come and pick them from there. And we could give many instances that have happened, but time does not allow. Information is very important. In all these cases, information is very important. It has to be shared responsibly with parents, authorities, media, and others. Responsibly, that's the word, that's the key point here. Shared responsibly. Because it could cause alarm, it could aggravate the situation, it could create even more risk. Because some may be shocked that they end up getting heart attack. Ensure that there's an official spokesperson for the institution. Not everybody should be going around taking news and information. It should be an official spokesperson. Ensure the information is accurate. That person should make sure they check that the information is accurate. Educate teachers and students not to volunteer information, especially in the media, especially to the media. not volunteer, because if they do, they will be quoted, or they may not be quoted. They'll quote the school and they'll put whatever headings they have put there based on what they have heard. So it's important not to do that. Media is very helpful, but sometimes they exaggerate what they hear. Teach all to avoid sharing alarmist information. Should avoid sharing alarmist information as much as possible. Talking about crisis management, this was one part of the topic. Have a policy and a team, and in particular crisis, get facts, form a team, draft a statement for communication, consult, brief the team regularly, release a statement, monitor and manage the crisis where possible, follow up and debrief, because after some time the things might have changed, so you need to give more information. Following are important: transparency, integrity, accuracy, consistency, and flexibility, especially by the person who is responsible to send out the information. So it is important to have these in place, or to know more about these, so that not everybody is giving information, because as you very well know, that put 10 people in a line and give some information to the first one, by the time it gets to the 10th one, it may be completely the opposite of what was given at the beginning. If not, at least if it may be distorted along the way. So it's important. It may not be easy to eliminate it completely, but when you feed the right information, it helps to reduce the wrong information that could be shared. In addition to much prayer and trusting in God's protection, which He generously offers, insurance assists in cases of damages arising from some of these situations. So Adventist risk management, which I believe most of you know, will help take care of some of these situations when they occur in your situations. And lastly, on this, God is our protector, first and foremost. Behold, He who keeps Israel will neither slumber or sleep. We know that He is protecting us. We do all these and they will happen, but ultimately our protector is God Himself. Keep trusting Him while doing all on your part, using the means and intelligence He has provided. And the Lord will be able to maintain and continue striving for excellence and working on enhancing the mission of the church. And it is our responsibility collectively. That's why we are sharing this information. Thank you very much. Before I leave, since I have a few minutes, about 4 or 5 or something like that, I just wanted to share about 2-3 things about some of these. Some of them I've already shared, that this information we are sharing is just topics. Go and find out more. Organize seminars at the institutions at different places so that we can get into more details. That is one. Number 2, I wanted to comment about Babcock University. My colleague, Dr. Manzi, made a presentation here and told us, and you asked questions about what is happening and things that are happening there. But I just wanted to mention one other thing that he didn't mention, and that is because these are things that you don't keep on bragging about. But Babcock University is generous. They are assisting most of the institutions in the West Africa division in many different ways. By training personnel, because they have a lot of higher level degrees, so they are providing tuition free for other for institutions. They are providing even support in terms of finances to the institutions. They are providing some of their appropriation of what they make from some of their industries to some of the institutions there. And that is one good thing, and I have the opportunity to work with Babcock as well, so I know this is happening. And I know also that God has promised that when you're generous, He's going to bless you. No wonder that they're being blessed in the ways that they're being blessed, because they're doing their work in helping others to develop. not to glorify themselves, not at all. In fact, some of it is through sacrifice, but they're doing it. And the other two things that I want to mention is that we want you, colleagues, to read the Journal of Advanced Education, which is available online. Just briefly here. This is the Journal of Advanced Education, a resource that is meant for you as teachers to teach like Seventh Adventist teachers. Most of the things we're talking about, they are written in one of these magazines. And it is available in different languages. If you speak any of those languages, you can get it. It has got a collection of over 40 years of articles written by fellow professionals on how to deal with things like best practices, faith and learning, current issues. All are available and you can get them. And what is the good news is that you can get this online for free. You don't need to subscribe anymore. The divisions are taking care of that and the General Conference, but you can get it for free anywhere you are online. And more so, you can also get it, and that is the website to get it from. You can also get it on a free app. A free app that is available for both Google, Android, and Apple Store. You can download it. In fact, you could even download it right here by scanning that barcode if possible. That is also possible. So this information is going to be also provided. You can get it from our colleagues. But besides getting it and reading what others have written, we also want to get articles from you. Please write articles and share them with the world, because you're doing things in your places. You're being innovative. You are going through challenges and so many things that are happening. Write for us because we want to share what is happening in your areas. If you are interested, you can write to one of the information that you find in there, or you can write to us and we can give you the guidelines on writing. But that is a possibility. And we know that many of you are able to contribute and write on these. So that is one. Then the last one that I wanted to share is about the Dialogue magazine. The Dialogue magazine is also still available. Let me see if I can find it.
If you are an Adventist college or university student, or an Adventist young professional, we have something for you. The journal is called Dialogue, and it helps you stay in touch with the best Adventist thought. Dialogue is designed to challenge you to think critically as a Christian and to reaffirm your faith. Dialogue is published in English, French, Italian, Portuguese, and Spanish. There are several ways to get it. Read the free articles online at dialogue.adventist.org. You can also download the free Dialogue app. Search for Adventist Dialogue. Want a printed version? We have that too.
That's right. That is also available and for reading, but also for writing. Again, you can get articles, guidelines on how to write, and we will be able. Lastly, we have resources on the Education Department website, which you are welcome to come use, to review. Just go to www.adventist.education and you'll get it. Many resources produced by different people, and you can also add some of your resources there. Thank you very much, and God bless.